Hi all. So in this lecture, I'm going to talk about how do we actually prepare a table to present our results in a scientific format. So based on what I covered in the previous video, we saw that we stopped over here wherein I have included all the variables that I wish to include in the descriptive table, and based on these variables I have actually prepared a table. So in this table you will see that first of all there's a heading table 1, and then I have prepared a column wherein I have all the descriptive variables, and over here on the right hand side there are functional difficulties, which is the outcome variable, including a column for the p-value. So in here you will see that I have not included age group less than 5 years old, because as we discussed in the previous video, that based on the research question, that was the exclusion criteria, children less than 5 years of age. So I am including age as a categorical variable, 6 to 11 years and 12 to 17 years. And similarly followed by gender, ethnicity, race, language spoken, socioeconomic status, adult education, and the three confounders that I talked about in the previous video. And lastly, the exposure variable itself, which is physical activity. Now at the bottom, you will see that I have included a few notes. Now, whatever we write at the bottom of the table that we are presenting are known as footnotes, okay? And these are very important because we want to tell the audience who is reading the paper or who is looking at the paper if we have used any abbreviations, or for example, what does adult education denote? It denotes the highest level of education of adult in a child's household. So therefore it is important to make this very clear to the audience reading the paper. And also I have used an abbreviation over here, which is socioeconomic status by FPL. Now FPL stands for federal poverty level. So the people who are reading the paper, they will know that FPL stands for federal poverty level. Now you will see there is another abbreviation in here, which is GED. And why have I not included GED? Because under adult education, I am using another term to describe GED, which is high school, right? So high school or GED. So I need not necessarily write an abbreviation for GED because I'm already giving an alternative term for it, which is high school education. So this way, I have compiled this table of descriptive table, which is basically table 1. Another thing I want you to notice is I have indented all the response categories. So whenever you're preparing a table, you have to write your variables, and all the variables in this column are left indented. I'm specifically writing that age is in years because age can sometimes be in months, it can sometimes be in days, especially when there is a data set of children. So you have to be very specific that age is in years. Then gender is male and female, and this way you have to first write that specific variable, and then the response categories just indent at least 3 spaces, and then keep it consistent throughout when you are working on the other variables also, so that your table looks nice and clean. So based on all the variables, I have prepared this table. One more thing I wanted to say is in the data set, you will see that the name of the variable is not exact. So for example, when we look at this data set, you will see age is age3 underscore 19. Then gender is actually sex underscore 19, right? So whenever you're populating the table, make sure that you do not pick up these terms and put it in the table. That is not the way to present scientific tables. When we are presenting scientific tables, we have to actually write what that variable is. Whatever the name of the variable is in the SAS codebook or in the SAS dataset, that cannot be included in this particular table. We have to write what that variable denotes. So sex underscore 19 actually denotes gender. So I have written gender. Also, HH language is actually language spoken at home. So over here, the spoken language at home. And then similarly, socioeconomic status and so on. So remember, you will have to use terms that denote what that particular variable is. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to the SAS, and then I have already included all the variables that I would like to run. Also, the chronology in which I have included these variables, I have kept it consistent with the chronology in which I have prepared this table, so that it becomes very easy for me to fill in these tables. So age is first, gender is next, race and ethnicity is the third variable. So similarly over here also, age is first, then is gender, and then race, ethnicity, and so on. And at the end, I am writing another option over here, which is chi-square. This chi-square option is going to give me the p-value which I want to fill in this table. And diff2 more underscore 19 is the outcome variable, which is the functional difficulty. So I'm going to just go ahead and run this, and remember our n is reduced to 21,000 because we are not excluding this particular age group of less than 5 years. So simply go ahead and run this, and you will see that it actually ran all the variables and it's showing the frequency and percentages. So over here on the left hand side, it shows you the results table, and the last one is functional difficulties with age, sex, race, right? So we want to start with age. So again, you see this plus sign over here, you click on this, and what we want to see is the cross tabular frequency. So once you double click on this, it will directly get you to the beginning of the code. So basically where the SAS code begins with. And whenever the first SAS code begins with, you will see it will say the SAS system. So first is age. Now, which number do we want to present? Because there are several numbers. There's frequency, percentage, row percentage, and column percentage, right? And it gives us age in 3 categories and cross tab with functional difficulties of 3 categories. So frequency, we definitely want to write the frequency of 6 and 11 years old and 12 to 17 years old. However, which percentage should we report, row percentage or column percentage? I would tell you that we should report the row percentage because of the way we have built the table. So what I'm going to do here is I'm quickly going to divide my screen into two so that I'm able to show you simultaneously what numbers I'm picking and how I am filling the table. So I've minimized my screen over here. I am clicking left click on my mouse, and I'm going to pull this until the extreme right, until my cursor does not go any further, and I'm simply going to release this. Now you see how it has divided the screen into two. So on my right hand side, I have my SAS, and now I have the option to pick from all the other things that are open over here. So I will pick this table. Okay, so this is how you can divide your screen. I learned this particular trick a long time ago, a few years ago, because it's very helpful when we are working from home. And at least when I work from home, I don't have two screens, I just have one screen. So if I want to work on multiple documents, this particular way of dividing the screen becomes very helpful. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to uh, close this particular window because it's taking up a lot of space. And then I'm going to simply minimize this. Okay, so over here, okay, we don't need to see the Explorer. So now I have the results which I need to fill in, and on the left hand side I have this particular table which I am going to use. So as I said, first we will fill in the frequencies. So I have three categories, 1, 2, 3, and two categories of age. So first let's start with age, and over here you see it is 6407. So let's just go ahead and fill in that number. And in 12 to 17 years of age, it is 8262, right? So I always first like to fill in the frequency and then go ahead and fill in the corresponding percentage. And as I said that we should always take the row percentage. So the row percentage here is 43.68, and I'm going to go ahead and close this parenthesis and again give a space in between the two numbers and fill in the remaining. So there you go. I filled in the first column, which is no difficulties at all. However, I know that I am filling in frequency over here and percentage in parentheses, but how will the audience who are reading the paper know? There is even they should know now that which number denotes what. So therefore, over here in functional difficulties, I'm going to put in parentheses n, which means it is the sample frequency and percentage. So when we put this right besides functional difficulties, the audience, the scientific audience reading the paper, they know that the first number denotes n and the second number is the percentage number. So this is how we can tell our audience that what we are showing you in the descriptive table is frequency and percentage. So like how I filled the first one, I'm going to go ahead and fill in for one difficulty also, which is 1724. And then yeah, make sure you don't make a mistake like how I just typed in a wrong number. Make sure that you're typing in the correct number, and again go ahead and fill in the particular corresponding percentage that you see in SAS. So this is the percentage I'm using. The third number over here corresponds to the row percentage, and again the other percentage is 58.31, right? And then similarly, let's quickly go ahead and fill in the last one where it is 893 and 1538. And again, I'm going to go up, put a space and create a parenthesis wherein I'm going to type in 36.73, close the parenthesis, and 63.27. So this way you will see that I have filled in all the numbers which are the cross tabs of functional difficulty and age group. One more thing that we need to fill in is the p-value, right? And which number should we be looking at when we're looking at the p-value? The chi-square, the first one. So this is the chi-square value over here, and this is the probability test, the p-value. It's the probability, therefore it's the p-value, which is less than 0.0001. Now when I am going to write the p-value, what I'm going to do is I'm going to merge those two cells. And why am I going to merge these two cells and not write less than 0.01 and less than 0.01? Because I just have one p-value, right? And we want to tell the audience that this p-value was for this particular variable which corresponds to both the categories of age. So just right click here and click on merge cells and then go ahead and type in 0.0001. So make sure your number of zeros correspond to the number of zeros which you get in your results table. If it's less than 0.001, then just include 2. If it's 3, then include 3. Make sure that it's accurate. Second thing is, whenever we are reporting the frequencies, like you see over here, it's 43.68. This is 41.70. We can easily translate this to 41.70 instead of 69 and 43.70 instead of 68. So that can be done, but then when we are reporting, when we are converting these decimals, then you have to make sure that your decimals, if you are writing 2 decimals, then write 2. If you want to write 43.7 and 56.3, then just write 1. And that consistency should be followed throughout the document. So if I am to change this to 7, then change this to 3, and similarly over here, change this to 7 and change this to 3, and same applies over here. So let's say you don't want to include 2 numbers and 1 decimal, then you have to keep that for the entire document. However, I am going to keep this as 2 because the SAS output is giving me 2 decimals and I prefer reporting the exact number. Therefore, I am going to keep these 2 decimals. Another thing, when you are presenting your results, now you see how all these numbers are left indented, and even the written variables, the names of the variables which I have written, is also left indented. However, when we are presenting the results, these numbers should not be left indented. Okay, that is not the correct way of presenting scientific information. You can either indent it as a central at the center, or you can right align it. But make sure that they are not left align. Okay, left align should not be included because left align should only be the name of the variable. Whatever you want to present, you can either align it to the extreme right or you can align it to the center. I prefer the center because it looks more nice and clean and more representable. So therefore, I'm going to keep it in the center. The same goes for the p-value also. Just make sure that it's in the center. It's moved to the center. So make sure that you apply this to all the numbers that you fill in for the remaining variables. So similarly, we can go ahead and we can fill in the variable for gender also. So for gender, over here you will see that this is male and this is female, whereas I have first written female and then written male. So make sure that you don't flip this, okay? Or you can simply flip this instead so that you don't make a mistake when you are filling in the numbers. So again, over here, male is 7593 and female is 7076. And again, I'm going to go up and select the third corresponding percentage, which is 51.20 and 48.80. Right? So this way, I'm simply going to keep on filling all the variables, all the numbers, all the frequencies that I got for the variables. Over here, you can see that the p-value is 0.39, which means that the p-value for cross tabs between gender and physical activity and functional limitations was not statistically significant, whereas a p-value of less than 0.01 is statistically significant. So what I'm going to do is now I'm going to pull up the table which I have already populated. So now we don't need a divided screen, and I can show you this particular table, which is the table which I have populated using the SAS output. So this is how your descriptive table should look like, with the p-value and your outcome variable and all the other variables that you want to include. The last thing I want to tell you, when you are populating this table, you have to check that these numbers add up to 100%. Okay, it's very, very important, because if they do not, if the percentages, the column percentages do not add up to 100%, it means that you have made some kind of human typing error somewhere. So it's very important. Over here you will see, as we did previously, 43.7 and 56.3 gives us a total of 100%. Again, 41.7 and 58.3 also gives us a total of 100%. So this way you can just, like, eyeball it and make sure that you can quickly add up these percentages. Like this is 51.76 and this is 48.24. And when you add up this, 6 plus 4 is 10, and 7 plus 3 and plus 1 is another 10, and this is 8 plus 1 and plus 1, which will be carried forward from here. So this is also 10, and 5 plus 4 is 9 and plus 1, 10, right? So there you go, you have 100%. So this way you can quickly just eyeball the entire numbers and check that all these numbers in here add up to 100%. So this way you can populate your table, for which you will be forming for your group project, which will be a descriptive table related to the specific question that you will be working on. Now, after we have populated this table, we also need to write a descriptive summary, right? Now, when we are writing a descriptive summary, we will go on describing how we saw any kind of pattern in this particular result. So what I have done is I have written a descriptive summary. So I think the best is, again, that I divide this particular page so that you're able to see what the descriptive summary looks like and how it corresponds to the descriptive table that we have populated. So again, the research question over here is there an association between physical activity and functional limitations? Now, when we are writing the descriptive summary, we first can start by telling the audience that table 1, which is this table, demonstrates characteristics of the sample population by level of functional difficulties, right? These are functional difficulties which were seen among them. Second, this sample represents children 6 to 11 years of age and adolescents 6 to 17 years of age. It's important to make this distinction because we all know, especially the scientific audience who's reading the paper, and if they have worked with this data set before, they will know that the NSCH data set includes children 0 to 5 years of age also. So when we are writing the descriptive summary, we have to specifically tell our audience that our results are only in these two particular age groups. Now after we tell them what this sample is about, go on to describe the statistics that we got. So we can start by saying that overall participants with 2 or more difficulties were more likely to be females, with approximately twice the number of adolescents having functional difficulties compared to children. So over here I am talking about two variables, right? So first is I'm talking about gender, that functional difficulties were seen more in females. two or more, so I'm talking about two or more functional difficulties. And why did I choose to report this number than any other number? Because the difference over here is a lot compared to the differences seen in the other two groups, because this is almost, you can say, 53% and this is 47%. So there's a 6% difference. So therefore we can go ahead and confidently say that this is the difference that we saw. However, we also can tell the audience that it was not statistically significant. And then I have written further with more / approximately. Now, when you are writing your results, please do not use this. This I am using only for the purpose of demonstration, just to tell you that when you're writing, you can either write with more adolescents having functional difficulties compared to female, or you can write with approximately twice the number of adolescents having functional difficulties. And then in parentheses, I am giving the audience a comparison wherein the over here, so I'm giving them this comparison of two or more difficulties where the number has almost doubled from children compared to adolescents, and also this is statistically significant. So if you want further, you can write that this was found to be statistically significant, or you can simply write p less than 0.0001. So even if you write this, you can, this does tell the audience, because again this is a scientific audience who is reading the paper, it does tell the audience that there is significance. And make sure to make your p italic. If your p is not italic, then you are not talking about the p value. Okay, so this is how you have to write your results, and these are, like, very fine nuances that we have to keep in mind. And the more you write, the more you deal with data, this will come as a reflex action to you that, oh, p has to be italic. Okay, so that finishes the first paragraph. Now in the second paragraph, we can go ahead and describe that most participants were English-speaking non-Hispanic white. Okay, so in this particular sentence, I have not even completed the sentence yet. I'm covering two variables. One is the language spoken at home and another one is race and ethnicity. However, you will see over here that I have not included any percentages. So it's not necessary that every time when you're describing this particular population using table 1, which is the descriptive statistics, you don't have to include all the percentages because you're describing it. So you can choose to describe it in sentences, or you can choose to describe it by writing percentages in parentheses. So, how did I come to this particular conclusion that most participants were English speaking? Because if you look at all these percentages, more than 90% of the population, which means more than 90% of the children in this particular sample were living at homes where the spoken language was English. And also majority of them, again, as you can see, greater than 60% or almost 70%, we can say, were non-Hispanic whites. So this is how you can just go ahead and describe it in one particular sentence, followed by with majority of the sample with greater than or equal to 200% of federal poverty level. So why am I using this particular percentage over here? Because when I write this, then the audience can go back to the table in the paper and directly go over here and see that, oh, okay, this does have the majority of the population, right? Because most of the population over here is 30% or above 30%. So this way you can describe it. And I said greater than or equal to 200%, which means it also includes this particular response category. So 70% of the population, we can say, was greater than or equal to 200% of federal poverty level. Again, if you choose to write that it is 70% or more population, you can write that, or you can write it the way I have written. There is no right or wrong over here. It is just a difference in writing style, as long as you are conveying the same message and you are not misinterpreting the data. Okay, so please keep this in mind. Then followed by that, I have written that table 1 revealed a pattern. So as I said, in descriptive analysis, we always have to look for a pattern, or we have to look for numbers which are like strikingly different. So that is very important. So over here, you will see that I'm saying table 1 revealed a pattern which showed that participants with no physical activity had the least amount of functional difficulties. Okay, so again, going back to physical activity and having the least amount of functional difficulties, which is the none category. So yes, participants with no physical activity did have the least amount of functional difficulties. So based on just this one sentence, what we can also start thinking about or conclude is maybe functional difficulties in children are due to increased physical activity, right? Because this is one pattern that we saw, that there is no physical activity and it had least amount of functional difficulties. And it is very natural also, because kids tend to fall a lot while playing or injure themselves or meet with accidents, and all those can lead to functional difficulties. So if there is no physical activity, then yes, there can be least functional difficulties. So we identified one pattern already without even running the regression models. So next I go on to say, whereas those who had at least 60 minutes of physical activity for 1 to 3 days or 4 to 6 days had more functional difficulties. Now, where did this 60 minutes of physical activity come from? Because it is not there in the table, right? But this 60 minutes of physical activity you will describe in your method section when you write the inclusion and exclusion criteria, and when you define your exposure variable and outcome variable. So even before reading the results, the audience is first going to read the method section, right? So in the method section, which is basically a statistical plan, right? Devising a statistical plan. So in that particular section, you will already write this, that physical activity was gathered using this particular question, and the audience will know that, oh, in this paper, we are looking at physical activity of at least 60 minutes. So therefore, it's not like we are introducing this out of nowhere all of a sudden and the audience has no clue about it. So this will be already included in your methods or statistical plan section. So this way I have described this particular physical activity. Now you will see that right from describing age, gender, race, ethnicity, and socioeconomic status, I directly jumped to this particular variable of physical activity. So is it important that we have to describe each and every variable that we are including in this table? The answer is no. We cannot possibly describe each and every variable, because then that will make the paper very long. And whenever we are submitting any kind of scientific paper, the scientific papers have some word limitations. So most good journals, good impact journals, have a limitation of 3000 to 3500 words. Therefore, we cannot exceed that word limit, and we have to say whatever we want to say or whatever we find using our research in those 3500 words. So therefore, if you look at the group project outline, you will see that for each section I have given a page limitation, and it is important that we follow that page limitation, because if we keep on writing, then it will turn into a book, and we are not publishing a book over here, we are publishing a scientific research paper. And most journals, as I said, have limitations not only for words but Also, in recent times, there have been limitations for the number of references also. So it's not like we can include 100 references in our paper. If it's a health report, yes, reports are longer, so we can include 100 references. But when it comes to scientific papers, the reference limitations have been 30 to 45 references. So therefore, in your group project, I have given you reference limitation also, so that we are able to synthesize and narrow it down to the most relevant studies related to our research question. So that is the intention or motive behind keeping a limited number of references. So lastly, the last sentence that I'm writing here is, in the descriptive summary, a slightly higher percentage of participants with no neighborhood recreation centers were found to have more functional difficulties. So over here again, I'm describing the neighborhood recreation centers, which are basically my confounding variables. Similarly, those residing in an unsupportive neighborhood, which is supportive neighborhood, no, right? So you, again, when you're writing this, you don't have to write those who responded no supportive neighborhood had more functional difficulties. When you're writing your descriptive summary, do not directly pick and choose the words which are there in this particular table. Try to use, like, a scientific language, and a language which will form a nice complete sentence, instead of picking the response category variables directly, which are given by NSCH. So the last sentence over here is, similarly, those residing in an unsupportive neighborhood had 2 or more difficulties, and then the percentage is 54.39%, which is basically this percentage, right? So this is how you should go on to describe your summary, which you will find in the table. Also, you will see that this particular summary, if I am to highlight this is 159 words, so 160 words you can say, right? So when we are writing a descriptive summary, this is in the results section, and as I said, there is a word limitation, and results section will also include our results from the regression model. So therefore, descriptive summary should be limited to 150 to 200 words. It should not be longer than that. So this was it for this particular section. Make sure that when you are working on your group project, I'm sure you all have started working on your group project by now, and you have formed a research question. If you have not, please start doing that and finalize your research questions. Start diving in deeper, digging in deeper into the SAS codebook. Just like how you wrote a literature review for your assignment part A, which was nothing but the introduction section of the paper, similarly start doing some review and start writing the introduction section related to your group project research question. Also, there are, like, 5 of you in a group, so make sure that everyone uses each of their skills. Like, somebody is good in writing, so you can hand over the writing job to them. Somebody is more better with numbers, somebody is more better with analysis, and so on. So delegate responsibilities, and finally just put it all together, and it will make, like, a good scientific and coherent paper, which is very important. So just like how I showed you, start building up a table for your own group project also. And please don't hesitate to email me if you have any questions related to your group project. I'll be more than happy to help you and answer your questions. So that will be it for this particular section. Thank you.